Tienes un novio y los primeros meses es como, ay, mira, qué bonito suda, qué lindo, o qué bonito se oye roncando, o no, le huelen mal los pies, pero yo no huelo nada. O sea, porque a las mujeres se nos bloquean las fosas nasales cuando estamos enamoradas, las fosas nasales, las neuronas, todo se te bloquea. Vas por la vida con esta cara como...
In Spanish, you have is tienes. A is un. Boyfriend, novio. You have a boyfriend. Tienes un novio. And is y. The is los. First is primeros. Months is meses. Then how would you say and the first months in Spanish? Los primeros meses. It's is es. And like is como. How do you say and the first months it's like? Y los primeros meses es como. And what about you have a boyfriend and the first months it's like? Tienes un novio y los primeros meses es como.
Tienes un novio y los primeros meses es como...
In Spanish, O is I. Look is mira. Then how would you say, oh look? Ay mira. How is que? Nice is bonito. He or she sweats is suda. Do you know how to say, oh look, how nice he sweats? Ay mira, qué bonito suda.
Ay, mira, qué bonito suda.
How do you say how again? ¿Qué? That's right. Cute is lindo. Do you know how to say how cute? Qué lindo.
Qué lindo.
In Spanish, or is o. How do you say how again? ¿Qué? And what about nice? Bonito. Good job. So, how would you say or how nice? O qué bonito. In Spanish, the verb to sound in the second person, so he, she, it sounds, is oye. To say someone is doing something that affects themselves in Spanish, though, we add the pronoun se before the verb, and this will replace he, she, it. For example, se ve bonito. He looks nice. And snoring is roncando. Do you know how to say, or how nice he sounds snoring? O qué bonito se oye roncando?
O qué bonito se oye roncando.
How do you say or in Spanish again? O. The verb to smell in the second plural form, so they smell in Spanish, is huelen. And bad is mal. How do you say or they smell bad? O huelen mal. Then fit is pies. His or her in Spanish is literally de él or de ella. So how would you say his or her feet smell bad? De él or de ella pies huelen mal. This is the literal translation though, as in Spanish we would actually say what in English would literally be, to him, her, the feet smell bad. And to translate this correctly, we need to replace to him or to her with the equivalent Spanish pronoun that indicates something is being done to him or her. And that goes right before the verb, so let's get rid of the rest of the words for a moment. That indirect object pronoun is le, and this is how the sentence would start in Spanish. Le huelen. Let's go back to the feet part now. When referring to masculine plural nouns in Spanish, as pies, you need to add the pronoun los before the noun, which is pies. Another example could be los novios, the boyfriends. In most contexts in English, this the may not be necessary, but you should still think of los as a translation to the if we were adding the before the subject in other sentences. And los is the Spanish direct object pronoun for masculine plural nouns. But we will see more of this type of pronoun later on, which also replace the. So if you check back, you'll see we have so far the translations for to him or her smell, the feet, and bad. So now, how would you say his feet smell bad in Spanish? Le huelen mal los pies. The word but in Spanish is pero. So how do you say, or his feet smell bad, but, o le huelen mal los pies, pero?
O no, le huelen mal los pies, pero
In Spanish, I is yo. Don't is no. The verb to smell in the first person form is huelo, and anything is nada. Do you know how to say I don't smell anything? Yo no huelo nada.
yo no huelo nada. O sea,
The expression I mean in Spanish is o sea. Because is porque. Women is mujeres. To get blocked is bloquear. But if we want to say we get something blocked, as in ourselves, we actually say se nos bloquea. And if what we get blocked is a plural noun, we say se nos bloquean with an N at the end. In Spanish, the word our before plural nouns, as in our feet, is nuestros. How would you say we get our feet blocked? Se nos bloquean nuestros pies. That is a literal translation, and it is correct, but a more natural translation in Spanish would replace our, nuestros, with already known los, which can also mean the. So as we said before, los replaces the word the when talking about masculine plural nouns. But when replacing the for feminine plural nouns, we need to change the o in los for an a, las. This is also a literal translation, but something to keep in mind is that in Spanish, we use pronouns more frequently than in English if we want things to sound correctly. The only noun without a pronoun here is mujeres, and this is a feminine plural noun. So which could be the correct pronoun to add before it? Las, the same as for fosas nasales. Lastly, in Spanish, we need to specify that the action is happening to the subject in the sentence with a to, which in Spanish is the word a. So, the correct Spanish sentence would literally translate into because to the women we get our nostrils blocked. So how would you properly say because women we get our nostrils blocked? Porque a las mujeres se nos bloquean las fosas nasales. And what about I mean because women we get our nostrils blocked? O sea, porque a las mujeres se nos bloquean las fosas nasales.
o sea, porque a las mujeres se nos bloquean las fosas nasales.
In Spanish, the word when is cuando, and the verb to be in the first person plural form, so we are, is estamos. The plural feminine form of in love, so when multiple women are in love, for instance, in Spanish we say enamoradas. How would you say when we are in love, considering we are speaking about us women? Cuando estamos enamoradas.
Cuando estamos enamoradas.
Remember which pronoun replaced the when talking about feminine plural nouns? That is las. Remember how to say nostrils in Spanish? A hint, it's formed by two words. Fosas nasales. Do you know how to say the nostrils in Spanish? Las fosas nasales.
Las fosas nasales.
In Spanish, the word neurons is neuronas, and this is also a feminine plural noun. Then how would you say the neurons? Las neuronas.
Las neuronas.
In Spanish, everything is todo. Gets blocked is se bloquea. Do you know how to say everything gets blocked? Todo se bloquea. And in context, if we're talking about things that are getting blocked on you, we don't really need extra words in English to make it clear. Everything gets blocked on you wouldn't really sound natural. But in Spanish, we want to be even more specific, so we need to add an equivalent to on you. And that's when the word te comes in. So if you're trying to say something gets blocked on you, in Spanish you say se te bloquea. So how would you say everything gets blocked on you? Todo se te bloquea.
Todo se te bloquea.
In Spanish, you go is vas. Through is por. The for singular feminine nouns is la, life is vida, and it is a singular feminine noun. So, do you know how to say you go through life? Vas por la vida. With is con. This, when talking about singular feminine nouns, is esta. Face is cara. And like is como. Do you know how to say with this face like, con esta cara como? And how would you say you go through the life with this face like? ¿Vas por la vida con esta cara como?
Vas por la vida con esta cara como.
That is the kind of face you get when you find a resource that really helps you understand how things like grammatical gender and pronouns work in Spanish. With FluentU, you learn Spanish by watching comedy videos like this one, and also movie trailers, music videos, interviews, and more. Each video has interactive subtitles to follow along and understand how things actually translate from English to Spanish in real time. Check the description for a link to a free trial. Remember how to say and in Spanish? Y. Men is hombres. And remember which word replaced the when talking about masculine plural nouns? For example, if we said the men, that is los hombres. Again, depending on the context, you could say only men in English instead of the men. But in Spanish, even if it's just men, most of the time it will be more naturally translated into the men. Los hombres. As well, in Spanish is igual. Do you know how to say and men as well? Y los hombres igual.
Y los hombres igual.
How do you say the men again? Los hombres. In Spanish, the verb to be in the third person plural form, so they are, is son. Do you remember how to say like? ¿Cómo? How do you say the men they are like? Los hombres son como. And of course in English you could get rid of both the and they in this case, but the Spanish translation would remain the same.
Los hombres son como.
In Spanish, at the is al. Beginning is principio. How do you say they are again? Son. And what about like? ¿Cómo? Do you know how to say at the beginning they are like? Al principio son como.
Al principio son como.
Remember how to say oh in Spanish? Ay. Remember how to say how? ¿Qué? And what about cute? We learned this word when talking about a boyfriend, so in that case we used the masculine form of cute, which is lindo. But as we're talking about a girlfriend now, we should use the feminine form, which is linda. See how the letter O at the end usually refers to masculines and the letter A to feminines? Let's check these other examples. Nice is bonito or bonita. In love, enamorado or enamorada. Do you know how to say, oh, how cute in Spanish when talking about a feminine this time? Ay, qué linda.
Ay, qué linda.
In Spanish, the expression let's see is a ver. Weight or weights is pesa. 10 is 10. Kilos is the same as in English, except the pronunciation of the O changes to O. Kilos. Your is tu. Bag is bolsa. Do you know how to say, let's see, your bag weighs 10 kilos. A ver, tu bolsa pesa 10 kilos. Another correct way of saying this would be, a ver, pesa 10 kilos tu bolsa. Moving tu bolsa to the end of the sentence. The meaning is exactly the same.
A ver, pesa 10 kilos tu bolsa.
Give it to me in Spanish is dámelo when you're referring to masculine nouns, and dámela when you're talking about feminine nouns. Do you think bolsa is a masculine or a feminine noun? It's a feminine noun, and we can tell that by looking at its last letter, A. Do you know how to say give it to me in Spanish? when talking about a bag? Dámela. In Spanish, don't is no. The subjunctive form of go is vayas. To is a. And in English, it's common to replace to for and in some contexts, especially when giving orders to someone, as in go and take milk. But in Spanish, it remains the same. A. Hurt is lastimar. And when in English we say yourself after verbs, in Spanish we'd usually translate yourself to the pronoun te. And in a sentence with a subjunctive verb, it would go right before it. Do you know how to say give it to me, don't go and hurt yourself? Dámela, no te vayas a lastimar.
Dámela, no te vas a lastimar.
From in Spanish is de. There is ahí. The, when talking about singular feminine nouns, is la. Discussion is discusión. And this is a feminine noun. So how do you say from there the discussion? De ahí la discusión. In Spanish, turns in a context of something changing into another thing is pasa. Remember how to say months in Spanish? Meses. Later is después. Into, in the context of indicating a change, a. How do you say from the discussion turns months later into? De ahí la discusión pasa meses después a.
De ahí la discusión pasa meses después a.
The hell is literally el infierno, but in most contexts, and especially when watching Spanish comedy, it's commonly translated into the swear word carajo. So how would you say what the hell if you were a Spanish comedian? ¿Qué carajo? Remember how to say you have in Spanish? Tienes. In is en. Remember how to say your? Tú. And what about bag? Bolsa. Do you know how to say what the hell you have in your bag? ¿Qué carajo tienes en tu bolsa?
¿Qué carajos tienes en tu bolsa?
Remember how to say because. That's porque. And what about the expression let's see? A ver. Then how do you say because let's see in Spanish? Porque a ver.
Porque, a ver.
In Spanish, why and why do is por qué. Very similar to because. Porque, right? Then the second personal singular of the verb to need, so you need, is necesitas. In Spanish, the indefinite article a, when referring to feminine singular nouns, is una. And by the way, we use indefinite articles when we talk about things in general or with an unknown identity. Una mujer. A woman. Could be any woman, right? Una neurona. A neuron. We don't know which exact neuron we are talking about. And in Spanish, flower pot is a feminine singular noun, which is maceta. Do you know how to say, why do you need a flower pot? ¿Por qué necesitas una maceta?
¿Por qué necesitas una maceta?
So, what is the indefinite article a when referring to feminine singular nouns in Spanish? Una. And what about the indefinite article a when referring to masculine singular nouns? That is un. Fish in Spanish is pez, and it's a masculine singular noun. Do you know how to say a fish? Un pez. Remember how to say why do in Spanish? ¿Por qué? How do you say you have in Spanish again? Tienes. Do you know how to say a fish? Why do you have? Un pez. ¿Por qué tienes?
Un pez. ¿Por qué tiene?
In Spanish, the first plural form of to keep, we keep, is guardamos. Do you remember how to say everything in Spanish? That's todo. And how do we say in? En. Remember how to say the for singular feminine nouns? That is la. And what about bag again? Bolsa. And if we want to make an emphasis on the thing that we keep in the bag, we could move that thing to the beginning of the sentence. And that thing is literally everything, todo. So we would say, todo guardamos en la bolsa.
Todo guardamos en la bolsa. O sea, las mujeres, tienes un novio y los primeros meses es como, ay, mira, qué bonito suda, qué lindo. O qué bonito se oye roncando. O no, le huelen mal los pies, pero yo no huelo nada. O sea, porque a las mujeres se nos bloquean las fosas nasales cuando estamos enamoradas. Las fosas nasales, las neuronas, todo se te bloquea. Vas por la vida con esta cara como... Y los hombres igual, los hombres son como, al principio son como, ay, qué linda, a ver, pesa 10 kilos tu bolsa, dámela, no te vas a lastimar. De ahí la discusión pasa meses después a, ¿qué carajos tienes en tu bolsa? Porque, a ver, ¿por qué necesitas una maceta? Un pez, ¿por qué todo guardamos en la bolsa?